right away. So, intro to evocation. Eric Arcalis Koetting seems to evolve as time goes on. Originally, he was just watching movies and thinking about church stories and scriptures, and then his story about what his life was before he started calling himself E.A. Koetting changed. 66 is the number value of Allah and Abjad. Maybe the Ouija board was answering to him, leaving God behind, as he asked for whatever to answer instead of to really kill that many. And 66 is also the number of books in the typical Bible. The English Bible had 100 books at 100 parts at one point, and it got reduced to 66 as time went on. The Grimoires offer plenty to teach how to experience the rituals. And I may say that he's trying to replace it with his own various Bibles. And the Grimoires offer plenty to teach how to experience the rituals. Attracting and repelling spiritual forces goes beyond awareness. So he couldn't even do a Necronomicon right, or maybe he didn't even read it. Because one of his spiels is, I read books, so you don't have to. I pick out the techniques and the symbols and stuff, and yeah, do that when you start. Attracting, repelling, and spiritual forces goes beyond awareness. Yeah, that's the thing people don't get. Evocation, whatever unseen thing is going on around you, or because of what you're doing, it doesn't mean that, just because you're not aware doesn't mean that something's happening. His vision, kneeling before a demon with its hands atop his head, of being a high rise and a fire closing in on him, can represent his arrogance leading to destruction. It can also refer to Realm and its legions. Hail to both of you. People can psychosomatically harm themselves, and some of this can be at the suggestion of devils. What if magicians subconsciously pick up on natural indicators rather than actually causing outer change in their sympathetic magic? Because you can perform a ritual and there's something you don't even notice, and it was already in effect and you didn't notice it at the time, but thinking back, you can notice a lot of that stuff. When a spirit mimics human form, the most terrifying to the most pleasant forms can vary per person and their history of trauma. And E.A. Koetting, because of what happened to him was when he was a small child, is why he's so afraid of when he dreams of a child, that freaks him out. Lucifer as a demon is said to appear most as a handsome man in his prime. And, that's where they got the idea for the TV show and the comic that provoked the TV show. Tarot reading on a public sidewalk or other public work can get a mystic the attention they need, but certainly it should not be for the purpose of showing off or making money. We evoke changes in our life by practices that get to our abilities and blockages. Eric Arcalis Koetting implies some serious criminal behavior and other such things that may not be necessary as means to bring about experiences, but the feeling of being damned or perverted may need criminal Satanism in some. And so, what do you think of the criminal Satanism aspect, if you don't agree in some aspects? Because in a couple of his books, at least, he implies that just do whatever the voices tell you to do, or what the impulses that you think are coming from the demons will, and they'll help you get away with crimes. That's something I personally don't see the indication of there being any truth to that. Aside from knowing we are to fully immerse ourselves in our deeds to have the maximum effect, why can't we fragment or pick and choose with the world's religions for ourselves? And some of the most essential grimoires are ones that you're going to find free online. And I don't mean pirated alternative religion books like this series that I'm commenting on being uploaded without permission. It's bound to come down pretty soon. And it would have been better for him to do his own comment through the thing. Now, if you want his stories or his particular symbols or mythology, fine, paper stuff. But as far as actual teaching of techniques and stuff, you're going to find that reading Crowley and stuff. Mastering Evocation 2. In a way, I'll get to brainwave states in a second here. In a way, covenantal relationships are a first type of conscious sets of interactions. Merely believing in a different master or slave, devotee, servant, adherent paradigm does not offer a convincing argument to not do something or to do something differently. Celestial or infernal, language or the sources will offer cosmological correspondence for the ritual or spiritual study at hand. Preparation, practicality, altered states of various types, development, language use, acting out, wood is not yet perceived, acting out what is not yet perceived, supplication, dismissal, not necessary or even a determinative in my experience, because, why bring about something and then try to chase it away? And dismissing focus on results are all things found in the writings of Aleister Crowley and those of even more mainstream scholars of religion. Yeah, you're going to find some of that in Joel Osteen or something, although I think he's more of a feel-good preacher than a serious scholar. Yeah, his disguised Satanism is not doing any. I know he wants to be the Michael W. Ford figure, but he's not doing as good of a job. And I think such is the case with the fact of evocation and invocation not always needing physical implements, because when you don't have something, your mind can be even more powerful. But you can have this connection either because of the effort and stuff you went to get the objects, and that's true too. Michael Ford is, aside from his somewhat cowardly approach, it's not as he forms some pretty interesting trance music or something, but he's a little dry for some people. Mastering Evocation number 3. Only the intro program is an hour long. I don't know how many programs in total, but it says it's over 13 hours. Context can give. Yeah, Kenneth Grant is difficult to understand quite a bit, but you can. I can, reading pretty much reading as far as I know everything that Crowley ever wrote. I didn't read Tom Thumb though. But yeah, Kenneth Grant. He can be difficult to watch though. Context can give way to specialization or specifics. Science does not deny the spiritual nor subjectivity. Trauma of a psychological sort can open the pathways to perceive demons and darkness. Trauma of a physical nature can cause damage that weakens resistance to certain influences, perceptions, or interpretations. 5861336, or any set of numbers or characters, can be given spiritual context, but witchcraft is only when demons are believed to be worked with. Now, I got a phone number that I think is his phone number at home, but I'm not going to share that here. Same thing with the address that I sent a package to. You know, because he had this thing where he held up this, you know, he created a little ritual with his phone number. There's too much moralizing of light and darkness and positivity and negativity and all that sort of thing. But, okay. Just like in the story of Gautama Buddha, with aspects of reality are deliberately hidden from children, those of childbearing age may use their freedom to explore them. And I think that's maybe what you mean as juvenile, is that it's all about, it's too much about rebelling. Rather than Satanism or alternative religion for its own sake, it's too much of it is given a tone of, you know, I'm doing something I was forbidden to do when I was younger. Hereditary ways may be implied and picked up without directly teaching them. Acting like one will succeed versus focus on failing certainly shows a difference in the life results overall, but that doesn't mean you can think and grow yourself rich. You got to be realistic and all that stuff and focus on smaller goals and fail some and win some. Black, red, and white, or silvery, are the most effective colors, and an inverted pentagram can certainly evoke the sense of changing to being different more. ATAA, TA, IR, MVK, or other chants fading into gibberish doesn't mean that it is an incantation and others are not. And it's like, what did one point that Nergargel Schlad made that was a very good point was, Satanism is a religion. By any real definition of the term religion, get over it. Left-hand path and right-hand path are not evil versus good, or doing your own thing completely versus following what everybody else says and not having your own opinion. Neither of those terms really mean that. But, okay, Mastering Evocation 4. Here's what I said about that. Reading or watching about brain states as numbers will have far less effect than understanding the negative and positive effects that result in them upon certain spots and pathways. And I believe that I've said a lot more about different brain states when I responded to other E. Koetting books, and Fiona Horn, I think is the name. I had some to say about her. I think when I mentioned brave states. Mystical states do not, so it's more than the theta gamma sync. That's a really serious oversimplification. Mystical states do not have to be disassociation to be higher consciousnesses. Frequency and intensity are not the same thing as to say one or two types of each happen with brain output is a vast oversimplification. Okay, I think I already said that, sorry. Intersections in the imperial world are gateways through which we may become aware of, first, our internal psychological means of perception, then truly spiritual realities. It may be better to use different colors and material with spiritual symbols. You know, too many people just get about a black pen and write a symbol on a paper, and when we have attributes mentioned for the Goetia entities and stuff, why not make the kings in gold, in yellow, gold, or brown? Why not make the marquises in silver and, use your regular pencil or something like that, or white? Why not make your princes in blues? Why not use the dukes in in green and the counts in red or pink and the knights in black, and there's other systems that you can do that stuff with. Then have them all the same, but simple practices can still work. That's how you start. One of the games that's played is people feel, oh, there's some super simple technique, and then they get an E.A. Koetting book, which I've never spent $100 or whatever for, or 200 or thousands secondhand or something for a E.A. Koetting book. Certainly never paid anybody to do rituals for me, unless you count going to church when I was younger. But, you know, so then the blinder comes off and you realize, oh no, you got to be even more devout than you were growing up in church and stuff, and you got to spend hours doing prayers and meditation and stuff like this to make this stuff work, even per day. And so it's not this, I take a symbol and a simple technique and yeah, you can make up a ritual, but magical imagination is best as the enforcing and establishing of connection to the structures of reality rather than escapism. Visions and dreams are not material manifestation. Visualization is not the same as randomly generated experiences, but they can be used and dropped to let what flows flow. Distinguish between psychiatric and the spiritual realities. Some pathways and habits take time to adjust to. And I know some of these comment-based things are word soup, but I'm responding here and there to what I feel needs to be responded to. And if there's a question or whatever, I'm open to some of that. Mastering Evocation, number 5. Oh, pathways being adjusted to. Particularly when you're looking at sensual things to the degree of like getting high on drugs or at least getting a little bit buzzed or something. Some of that can take months to do. It's not something that you just pick up. Yeah, it can be worthwhile right away, but it's not going to be like when you're in the hospital and they give you just a little bit more than you need, you know what I'm talking about? And you like, it just lays you flat and you get just dragged into sleep, I guess. It's like, yeah, it's not like getting hydromorphone or something, shots at first, but it can be later. Of course, you don't lose consciousness and all that. You learn to stand up and everything too. But anyways, Sastan may manifest as a water form of the art or temperance tarot card, but its name might be the Aramaic Sathan, or upliftment of the opposition. Drugs may be as air, water, or earth. Putting them into fire can be seen as the intellect, emotions, and body, transforming to be in line with the will. Do we really need drugs for this? Again, I say no. Well, in the age of Aquarius, we would have to say that Sagittarius would be more like January instead of like December, or like it was in the age of Pisces, or the age of Aries would have been November. You know, approximately, you know. Anyways, putting them into the fire can be seen as the intellect, emotions, and body transforming to be in line with the will. Okay. You know, if you look at I'm sidetracking here, the Rig Veda, all that stuff about we will get the God of heaven high on basically opium, ephedra, and marijuana, and he will do what we want. You know, you can see it as a symbolic thing, much like here, where the intellect, the emotions, and the body transforming to be in line with the will, because soma is a symbol of consciousness, and therefore, other than these mixtures that have been verified by archaeological and recipe list, and the Hayoma goes even further with more plants. Substitutes were included, like just taking a couple of those plants, or one of those plants, and mixing it with some mushrooms or something. Blood practices can represent a connection to life. Water practices can represent a connection to consciousness. Fire practices can represent the power of intention. Who else thinks that Eric Arcalis Koetting seems to act and otherwise appear to be dishonest in his videos? Now, whether it's his public free for everybody stuff or the other stuff, you're going to see that when it comes to his videos, it doesn't look any more authentic, and he makes it sound like, oh, we have awesome camera equipment, we can capture possession as it really happens, and it's like, maybe somebody gets into it and maybe you see their eyes look a little different or something, but you really don't ever see any spiritual phenomenon. You need the psychic and spiritual awareness to be able to see these things. And it looks, he has the markers, so much of lying in some of these videos, but some of these markers are also the markers of people who've done a lot of drinking in their life, and in his case, a lot of amphetamines and artificial marijuana and all sorts of and cocaine and stuff. And I think he said he used heroin at some point, which strychnine is very bad for the brain. So he may not be lying per se, but it just has all the markers of it at times. And some of the associates really seem to know their stuff. That's one of the things that's been good in recent years, is that they've pulled in people that seem to be not doing what they're doing because it happens to be the thing that's going to sell. They seem to really be authentic about, this is my spiritual path. The spirit Mepsita, as a Neptunian spirit, can represent trust in what is beyond the experience of one's life because of Neptune's 165.79-year orbit. Mepsita, as a Uranian spirit, can represent a connection with what is possible in life because of the 30,687-day orbit of Uranus. And another thing related to that is how you can say, I'm not sure about Frank White and Robert Bruce. Robert Bruce can be convinced, so can Frank White, but it doesn't, I don't really see anything special coming out in terms of what they have to teach, or that they're having any experience that you can necessarily rely on. But I mentioned in the other video, he had, one of his books talks about a meditation of picturing a red sphere floating between your genitals and your anus or around them, and it's like, okay, maybe that's why Uranus has become a spirit attribute that appears more in his. But anyways, it offers a funny moment on the video nonetheless. Altered photo frames make great ritual items, as you saw earlier this month, what I did there. One of the best painting black on the other side, I've done that too. One of the best better than spending $900 for a scrying orb, paint some piece of glass black. One of the best times for rituals is as one goes to sleep. If you're doing things right, don't worry about going to sleep in the middle of the, Sometimes it is not a spirit, but a type of spirit. That is implied in such grimoires as the Goetia. There's whole classes of spirits out there, and people think, oh, I encounter something like this, so it has to be the Lucifer, the Astaroth, rather than somebody from its ranks. Evocation is what is without desired experiences. Now, you can desire experiences, but, the evocation itself is definitely, it doesn't have to fall in line with what you want. And who else thinks Eric Arcalis Koetting has viewed Church of Hermetic Sciences media? And Carol Pokranian does know his stuff. He doesn't know things linguistically as much as one might like, but because there's stuff I would have figured he would have figured out in all these years, but he is somebody who's told us some stuff about techniques that at the time you really didn't have anybody back in the 60s and 70s that was writing, clarifying stuff that Crowley had to say and other scholars had to say, that, the Magic of Solomon tells some interesting stuff. So, Mastering Evocation number 6. People that are too attached to Christian mythology forget that the loyal host of angels were of a different spiritual substance than the type of beings who could choose to become demons. In Eric Arcalis Koetting's Circle of Pacts, the characters seem to be translated Joseph Smith style as give an offering to his house to devour, which the eye of the house is with Samael 700 years to bind the name of God in chains. So that he does have I thought he completely just recite these characters. I'm not sure how they're read. Not sure what they mean. Just recite it, which happens to be like 15 ash talash to talash. I don't remember at the moment. But Joseph Smith was unsure how his language worked too, and how the characters are pronounced by themselves. Because Joseph Smith looked at this papyrus, right, and he really divined the meaning. And some scholar that eventually stopped writing for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints looked at that, and he said, yes, see the translation. He says that there's a way that God taught him to expound on the meaning, and he found in there that you had, so Joseph Smith said, oh, this is a picture of the moon, this is a picture of this, and he wrote whole chapters based on a couple lines. The material world becomes perceived as an extension of the body through the ritual connections. I prefer to think of the pentagram rituals as evoking instead of banishing. Biblical demonology for the pentagram rite is one of my masterpieces, I would say. Because I made it all in the language of Tanakh. I took the cosmology, I included the demons and the hell and all that stuff and put them right they were, rather than the star of 6 and the star of 5, although I did translate that to leave in for evidence on the version. The material world becomes perceived as an extension of the body through the ritual connections. I prefer to think of the pentagram rituals as evoking instead of banishing, but do not like to keep their visualizations in single colors like the Golden Dawn does. Now, he did a video about the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, but it appears that from his Mastering Evocation example of it, that he didn't actually have the thing memorized, which is fine, things take time. There's no harm in recording the symbols in magical journals and using temporary forms to dispose of or let wash away, because he didn't like it. Peralta, as demon king of air, with white, blue, and yellow robes as part of its spiritual body, may be its connection to thoughts of the spirit, mental, and soul worlds. Baal-zebub can be a misspelling of Baal-zebub. Baal-zebub can be a misspelling of Baal-zebub, or Lord of Flying Insects, but certainly other biblical misspellings show meaning that we're looking at. It's like, how can they misspell Satan so many times in the Bible? Well, it turns out that Hashathan means continual scourge, when Sathan means the opposition, so that could be very intentional. The sacred books of the Abramelin the Mage and the sacred books of Honorius. What's the the three books of occult mystery? That's what I was thinking of, that Barton is similar to. Okay, so Baal-zebub may mean master of dividing the people of the eye, or master of dividing an apple, or dominion of yellow inside. It can mean the source, the house of the flowing wound, the pus. So in terms of the dead or the sick having wounds. With ritual practice for perfection, and remember the degrees of manifestation may be far more than is perceived. But again, don't use magic as escapism. Take regard to what you decide to worship. Oh, it's not worshiping, I'm only evoking it. You know, it is what it is. And, you know, essentially, you get to the state where you're essentially feeling something. It absolutely does not mean that, oh, I've caused a physical manifestation. Haset is actually an Egyptian title, and just like Yahweh, in two different forms, started as an Egyptian name, which is fine. One thing that's mentioned in the ad for this program features a woman experiencing real demonic possession. You must be 18 or older to watch. Now, are negative experiences, so because you're not, no matter how much you work towards it, you don't know everything, you're not everywhere, you don't have all power, you can't do whatever you want. Everybody realizes this in life. That's why billionaires and really, really rich people are actually less likely to be happy than the rest of us. The jinn, they have choices. And by jinn, I mean those pre-human things we like to call, that people call gods and goddesses, these males and females that have their choice. And they have their choice. So whether they're demons or not, they got their choice. You can't make them do whatever you want because you figured out the right formula. But they can, right or wrong, they can end up being attracted or repelled by what's going on. And yeah, practice, to save you the money of getting the course, it's right in the description. It's a practice. You got to figure out your consciousness. You got to figure out how to change your state of brain. And yes, you can walk around with a book or whatever, but you just got to be in the practice of doing this stuff. And it starts with stuff with your eyes closed, and then you do stuff with your eyes open, and you're moving symbolically, keeping your eye in one spot. Then you can move around the room. And again, the whole purpose of buying E.A. Koetting books should be entirely either you're a book collector, or you're trying to make money by selling it secondhand, or you just like his stories and symbols. It's completely new and different from everything else. Strategies and theories that you can't find anywhere else. I don't see any evidence that E.A. Koetting has ever came up with anything that anybody else hasn't said different terms. But, he was raised Christian, and the Christians thought that they had something new other than names. Well, instead of Hanuman, perhaps Ravana, but there are certain aspects. It's like there's the doctrine of Tawheed, and just like the Nachora Nefre cult that in California, I'm not sure if it's still running, but I used to keep up on what they were doing, where they saw all the aspects of Grimoire of the Golden Toe. That's interesting. I haven't. Perhaps after I climbed the political ladder of Egyptian entities as a idea of a political spiritual station, perhaps maybe I'll go back to the reptilians and do something on toads or something. But I mean the amphibians. But yeah, I'm not familiar with that. I got distracted. Comment or question as I'm trying to say something. I have a last comment. Anyone can get success. Train with me in the private forum. Now people don't have to pay to get in that forum, I don't think. Yeah, you can search the internet and find a lot of stuff. And I'm not just saying that to promote my channel. You can go back. The Devil's Stone, basically his demonization of the Philosopher's Stone, or the psychological effect of going on Hajj to Mecca, or whatever. That's what he's talking about. Koetting doesn't seem to know what a grimoire is. A grimoire isn't just an alternative religion book. And it's not... Oh, and by the way, one of the tricks to the magics is that the people, all these writing of... don't be... people who don't want to be on the side of God and angels, they're not doing something that revealed religion approves of, in putting things that you step on and sit on and whatnot and carry into the bathroom and all that uncovered. So, there's a secret thing going on there. But if you've done some of these grimoires, or something like some of these grimoires where the Grand Grimoire and all that, where you spend months preparing yourself, the ritual has started. You're looking for the stones. You're preparing your ability to fast and breathe different and all that stuff. And just pick up things as time goes. And okay, yeah, I'm not seeing anything different. But when I comment on some of these books, I am particularly careful. I'm doing this under fair use. Yeah, some things go way up. I'm doing this under fair use and there's even more rights, for reporting and commentary, and there's even more freedom to do this under the religious freedom laws that I know in my one series that I don't think anybody who watches this channel has seen it, because I haven't got prints to make it. But I quote the Bible and stuff for reasons for that. Not that I necessarily think, a quote from the Bible is authoritative upon me. That's not necessarily, I don't think of it like that. But, there's reasons to report on stuff and respond to stuff. And it's, as I'm saying, I'm responding, so you don't necessarily know his story or his cosmology exactly. You just know how I'm responding to things. And I'm saying things much shorter, and I'm really doing with what his books, it's long blathering sorts of things. That's how some people would say. I think people should use more respectful language in responding to these things. And it's like, if you drink and you smoke, don't complain that he uses other drugs and, or has been caught with other drugs. It's, drugs are drugs. Let's not judge people on semantics or legality. But I saw a video that day or night or whatever called the Satanic Order and Satanic Unity and Supreme Order of Satan. So that's along those lines. So beliefs and practices should definitely not be about who else has them. But should we be as stubborn as the bad stereotypes of organized religion? Because some people think, some people say they're Satanist or New Age or whatever because they're a stubborn sort of character, rather than, it's like, no, that's exactly why people left the so-called organized religions, which sometimes are less organized. These people leave what they call organized religion to follow something more hierarchical, more dogmatic, and less freedom of thought than theistic Satanism. I'm not necessarily saying that about that person, but theistic Satanism may need to open public centers for the reason of establishing its position in society as recognized. Some countries like Iran, if you're Wiccan or something, you can go with your local coven to make sure you're written in as a permitted people. You go down to the local government office and you just make sure your rights are looked after, because so people don't label you as some alternative political organization or something. So one type of video I don't think that Nargargle made was on Taoist Satanism, but Wu Wei, non-action, least resistance, has long been open to magicians of various types. So if Nargargle returns, that is something I would want to see, or perhaps that's something I can do a video about, is what would Taoist Satanism be? I have a lot of things written, some are printed, some are not, but I do intend to go in all sorts of areas. What happened to the original Bible? I guess while we're talking about a different format, each Bible was its, alternative things, because the truth is sometimes alternative. Each Bible was its original, but there have been edits since most churches decided on theirs. Even the over 300 versions of the Ramayana may include Bibles, because obviously some of these were compiled from different sources, orally and otherwise. The Vedas, each of the 4 Vedas we have, and they found a fifth Veda. There's supposed to be 7, so there's 2 more out there. But those were definitely compiled of what was going on as much as 40,000 years ago. Some of the Puranas include information that indicate that closer to 2 million years, maybe early humans were passing on things that even, types of human that don't even exist now. Well, all the prophets were sort of shamans. It's like, they go in the cave and they told. If you look at traditional Islamic material, the Sufi, the Shia and the Sunni and the Abadi I haven't seen books of the Abadi narrations. I guess you have to go to Oman to get copies of that reliably. But you see techniques to experience your rituals. It's the breathing and posture, and maybe advice for eating, and there's dozens of things that are advised. So being a religious specialist and a specialist in having experiences is a part of mainstream religion that you don't hear about much unless you actually pour through the text yourself. At least I didn't. It's all about this deed is more valuable than this deed, and yes, beliefs and practices matter, but Adam had the power to name things. So one of the currents that I've encountered is this idea that anything new is like a sin or something, or maybe, it's if you're saying that something's wrong outside of the rules because it's new, it doesn't operate like that. God's word was never a Bible, but revealed as without need for any generation to change it. Some leaders of Judaism and Christianity wanted to make themselves out to be better than God's exemplar prophets. That is one of the problems that happened in India with their texts too, is they wanted to make their leaders, let's give the so-called incarnations of God and the other prophet figures that we don't consider incarnations of God. Let's give them qualities that our gurus are better at. And the Jews and the Christians, when they wrote their Bibles, wanted to make their leaders have problems. So we feel like either their leaders are, did better with the material, and see, you can do even better than the prophets themselves, that sort of thing. Or, but a lot of it was to excuse themselves. Now, they tend to be better behaved than the general congregation, and then better than the non-religious, but it's not enough to pay them. But there are so many ways to learn how to evoke yourself through your different senses, and you may want to become practice with each of those. And I'm going to put up a different meme for this and close. If there's any final comments or questions, I may have missed something because I was trying not to get distracted and make it through the material that I had typed up. And hail and salute.